Podcasting, HTML, Dreamweaver, Flash, Fireworks, Photoshop, Quark Express, PageMaker. What are these things? Thomas Earl T. Morris is a contemporary American author of fantasy and detective fiction. He's been a classical actor. He just told me he doesn't do that anymore. He's done Shakespeare, but he's better known as I suppose what you call a geek demystifier, someone who can explain in a language that you or I can readily grasp, one hopes, what all these innovations mean or how they work. And he's currently in New Zealand doing that, and here he is to tell us more. Good morning.
Good morning, New Zealand, and good morning, Chris. How are you? I got to tell you, this has been an absolute hoot. When I left for New Zealand, a lot of my friends said, T, you are going to come back, right? And I said, of course I'm going to come back. And now I'm beginning to reconsider that.
Well, it's a long way. And you've said on your website, my God, I can't imagine how far this is.
No, yeah, I never been on a plane for well, you know, I'm going from the East Coast, so from the farthest point.
This is your first long haul.
First big long haul across the Pacific. You know, to quote Lord of the Rings, you know, when I take this next step, this will be the furthest I've ever been. You know, only yes. Instead of saying that in the middle of a cornfield somewhere in New Zealand, I was saying it when I stepped on Air New Zealand Flight 5.
I notice you've been educating yourself on the way people think here.
Oh, yeah. I watched every episode of Flight of the Conchords twice. Right. I watched my Lord of the Rings, and I got tickets to an All Blacks game, so I feel pretty good on the New Zealand culture.
Well, that's good. That covers the field, more or less. Listen, is somebody born a geek or become a geek, or is geekness thrust upon?
Some have geekness thrust upon them. To give a spin on the Bard again. You know, my thoughts about being a geek and a professional geek. So please try this at home. It all depends on. I think the term geek is now about anything you're passionate on. For example, you know, the same guys the same people who would laugh and point at the guy who dresses like a Klingon and speaks Klingon and goes to a science fiction convention dressed as a Klingon. I guarantee you, that same guy who's laughing at him, he's painting his body half white, half black, putting the silver fern on his cheek and going to the All Blacks game.
That's geekism.
That's a sports geek.
That's a leap of the imagination.
Yeah, but it's true.
Yeah.
It's true. So really, I think anything you're passionate on, that makes you a geek.
Yeah.
And now, granted, geekdom is on the rise because of social media, this whole social media movement, which I sum up to people as blogging, podcasting, social networking, Facebook, Twitter, and the like. This is actually forcing the hand of people who said, well, I don't understand tech stuff, I don't understand geek stuff. Yeah. And now they have to learn it just to survive, because the entire...
That's a rather scary thought.
How so?
You have to learn this to survive.
Well, yeah, but really, when I talk to clientele about social media, I tell people it takes time. That is the biggest investment, is time. And if you don't have time to understand or want to understand social media, that's okay too. Yeah. But don't be surprised if you find yourself on the outside of the glass looking in.
Yeah,
you know? And
that's what worries. That's what worries so many of us.
I don't mean to worry you here, Chris. No,
well, was it kind of halfway in?
Yeah, but but Chris, I'm looking around here. You of all people should just latch onto this like easily, because I mean, there's some high tech stuff you got here. Now, granted, you've got the engineer who's keeping you in line.
Yes,
but
yes, thank God for him. A lot of us sit on the fringe, and this is a perfect example of sitting on the fringe. I talk about podcasting. I mean, you can get this and that we do as a podcast.
But
I've only once podcasted in my life. It took me a long time.
Right. But the thing is, you never stop learning. I mean, just because I'm a geek, and I even like to joke that I'm a professional geek, I never stop learning. Yeah. And and like with podcasting, I'm constantly trying to learn new things, to push myself to try to make what I do better. And I really think that's what it boils down to is how much do you want to learn, and how much do you want to improve on the current skills that you have.
This whole social media phenomenon is the product of the last 5, 6, 7,
I would say
years.
About 5, 6 years. But if you basically, because I'm lumping blogging as part of that, I would say it's actually been almost 10 years in the making. Yeah. But it's really caught on in the past 5 years. It really has just. Who
began it all? I mean, is this something organic that's just sprung out of the internet?
It's truly organic. Yeah. I mean, when you ask who started blogging, who started podcasting, who started Twitter, it really was a social movement. I mean, it was a bunch of developers that said, we want to communicate better. A bunch of developers that said, let me try something. Let's try something different with the delivery of media. Let's try a different way of reaching out to the public. And what started as just a really fun way of trying to stay in touch with people, it actually has become this movement that has a lot of good and bad about it. For example, I got welcomed to this country by one of your journalists from the New Zealand Herald. Yeah. Let's see, it was actually in this weekend's Canvas magazine. So, Greg Dixon. So, Greg, if you're listening, thank you for this wonderful welcome where he says, "It is no surprise the whole online social networking fandangle springs from America. It is, after all, a country where gauche public sharing, disappropriate emotionalism, and meaningless display are national pastimes." Wow! I feel so welcome.
Let me apologize.
No. But I mean, this is.
But maybe it's true, isn't it? Most of this is originating. Most of the thinking that's being applied to this, not in Japan or Indonesia or Iraq or anywhere else.
It did start in the States, but keep in mind about the United States, it took the White House almost 9 years, and then finally, when President Obama was sworn into the White House, we got ourselves a blog for the White House, and people are still very, very slow in picking up this technology, and it's still very geek oriented. Yeah. I mean, going back to this particular article, Dixon commented that he had 2 followers, and based on the 2 followers that he had and how infrequently he tweeted on Twitter, he says, "It is rather I've concluded that the whole idea of Twitter is so utterly devoid of any sort of merit that it's very pointless has rendered me mute." Now, I really think that's short-sighted on Mr. Dixon's part, mainly because I've seen people raise money for breast cancer using Twitter. I have seen the Red Cross use it.
The multiplier effect that can occur. Yeah.
The thing that's amazing about actually to give a local example, you all had a piece of legislation on your books where if someone were suspected of circulating copyrighted material on their website, not proven, but suspected. No proof was even necessary. I could call you up and say, "Hey, Chris is circulating MP3s of copyrighted material." The ISP could shut you down. So, starting in New Zealand was this thing called blackout.
This is a mass rumor.
Yeah, right? It was. Well, what it was this grassroots movement in New Zealand said, "We want you to black out your avatar on Twitter, black out your avatar on Facebook, and just go ahead and put a little black patch up there and let people know what you're protesting." Well, through Twitter, through Facebook, through blogs, through podcasts, this whole thing went viral. And pretty soon, this became headlines for the BBC, for the New York Times. Stephen Fry, a major player in the social media movement, he blacked out his avatar. Neil Gaiman, Newbery winner Neil Gaiman, he blacked out his avatar. And it just went on and on and on, and the legislation didn't pass.
This is collective retribution of a new kind.
It's a different type of protest, as it were.
Where does the law figure in all of this? I mean, the law has been dashing along trying to keep up with social media.
And some of them are catching on. And some of them are catching on.